Steve Harvey asked a simple Family Feud question to identical twin brothers standing side by side at the family podium. But when one of them answered, his voice broke and he started crying. What Steve didn't know was that the answer he was about to hear would reveal one of the most beautiful acts of brotherly love he'd ever witnessed. By the time the truth came out, Steve Harvey would be sitting on the stage floor between two brothers, crying so hard he couldn't speak, and the entire studio would be witnessing what true sacrifice looks like. It was Tuesday afternoon, August 22nd, 2023, during a regular Family Feud taping at the show's Atlanta studios. The Martinez family from Phoenix, Arizona was competing against the Chen family from Seattle, Washington. Both families were energetic and competitive, filling the studio with laughter and enthusiasm. But something about the Martinez family immediately caught Steve's attention. Two of the family members were identical twin brothers, 24-year-old Marcus and Michael Martinez. They stood at the family podium dressed identically in blue button-down shirts and khakis, their resemblance so perfect that even Steve had trouble telling them apart during the introductions. What the studio audience couldn't see was the small scar on Michael's lower abdomen, hidden beneath his shirt, and they couldn't see the matching scar on Marcus's body. Those scars told a story that nobody in the studio knew yet, a story of love, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bond between brothers. From the moment the Martinez family took their positions, Steve noticed something unusual about the twins' dynamic. Marcus stood slightly behind Michael, always making sure his brother was comfortable, occasionally touching his shoulder in a protective gesture. Michael moved more carefully than his twin, as if his body was still learning to trust itself again. During the family introductions, their mother Rosa kept glancing at both boys with an expression that mixed pride with lingering worry. "We've got identical twins here," Steve announced enthusiastically as he approached the Martinez family podium. "Now, gentlemen, I've got to ask, which one of you is the troublemaker?" The audience laughed, expecting the usual twin banter. But what Steve got instead was silence. Marcus and Michael looked at each other, and something unspoken passed between them. Something heavy. Something that suggested these brothers shared more than just identical faces. "We both are," Michael finally said with a small smile. But his voice carried a weight that made Steve pause. The game progressed normally for the first few rounds. The Martinez family was doing well, matching wits with the Chen family in an entertaining back and forth that had the audience cheering. But Steve couldn't shake the feeling that there was something different about the Martinez twins. The way Marcus's eyes never left Michael. The way Michael moved with just a hint of fragility. The way their mother kept watching them both with an expression that suggested she'd recently been terrified of losing something precious. It wasn't until Fast Money that everything changed. The Martinez family had won the main game, and now Marcus and Michael were selected to play Fast Money together. The twins stood side by side at the podium, and Steve could see Michael take a deep breath, as if steadying himself for what was coming. Steve asked Marcus the first 4 questions, which he answered quickly and confidently. Then came the 5th and final question, the one that would change everything. "Name something," Steve said, reading from his card, "that you would give up for someone you love." Marcus didn't hesitate. "My kidney," he said immediately. The audience laughed, thinking it was a joke, a clever, unexpected answer. But Steve noticed that Marcus wasn't smiling. Neither was Michael. In fact, Michael had put his hand over his mouth, and his eyes were filling with tears. Steve looked from one twin to the other, his comedian's instinct telling him that something real was happening here, something that transcended the game. "Your kidney?" Steve repeated, his voice suddenly gentler. "Yes, sir," Marcus said, and now his voice was shaking too. "I gave my kidney to my brother 14 months ago." The studio went completely silent. Steve set down his cards and walked closer to the twins. "Say that again?" Michael finally looked up, tears streaming down his face. "He saved my life, Mr. Harvey. I was dying, and Marcus gave me one of his kidneys." What nobody in the studio knew was that 18 months earlier, Michael Martinez had been living a normal life as a 23-year-old graduate student in Phoenix. He was healthy, active, and planning his future. Then one morning, he woke up feeling unusually tired. Within 3 weeks, he could barely get out of bed. The diagnosis came like a death sentence: acute kidney failure. Both of Michael's kidneys were shutting down due to a rare autoimmune condition that the doctors hadn't caught in time. Michael was put on dialysis immediately, hooked up to machines 3 times a week to clean his blood because his own kidneys could no longer do the job. The doctors told Michael he had two options: wait for a kidney transplant from a deceased donor, which could take 5 to 7 years, or find a living donor. But finding a living kidney donor is incredibly difficult. The donor has to be a perfect match, has to be willing to undergo major surgery, and has to be healthy enough to live with only one kidney for the rest of their life. Marcus Martinez didn't hesitate for even a second. "Test me," Marcus had told the doctors the same day Michael got his diagnosis. "I'm his identical twin. I'm a perfect match. Take one of my kidneys and give it to my brother." The doctors explained the risks. Kidney donation is major surgery. Marcus would have a large scar. He'd spend weeks recovering. There was a small but real risk of complications. He'd have to be extremely careful with his remaining kidney for the rest of his life. If anything ever happened to that kidney, Marcus himself could face kidney failure with no twin to save him. Marcus heard all of it, and his answer never changed. "Test me. We're doing this." The testing process took 6 weeks. During that time, Michael's condition deteriorated. The dialysis was keeping him alive, but barely. He was weak, exhausted, and losing hope. He begged Marcus not to go through with the donation, terrified that something would go wrong and he'd lose his twin brother, the person he'd shared a womb with, the person he'd spent every day of his life with. "If you die trying to save me," Michael had told Marcus through tears, "then we both die, because I can't live in a world without you." Marcus had held his brother and said, "Then it's a good thing I'm not going to die. I'm going to give you my kidney. You're going to get better, and we're going to grow old together, arguing about who's the better looking twin." The surgery took place on June 15th, 2022, at Banner University Medical Center in Phoenix. The operation lasted 9 hours. Rosa Martinez sat in the waiting room with her husband Luis, both of them praying for their sons. The surgery was successful. Marcus's kidney was transplanted into Michael's body and immediately began functioning. Both brothers survived. Marcus woke up in recovery with a 10-inch scar and intense pain. He refused extra pain medication because he wanted to be alert enough to ask about Michael. When he learned Michael's body was accepting the kidney, Marcus cried with relief. Michael woke up with his own surgical scar and a functioning kidney. The first thing he asked for was Marcus. When the nurses brought the brothers into the same room, both in hospital beds, they reached out and held hands. "Thank you," Michael whispered. "Thank you for my life. You do the same for me," Marcus said. "We're twins. How could I keep both my kidneys when you need one?" The recovery was long. Marcus spent 5 days in the hospital, then 6 weeks at home healing. Michael's recovery took even longer as his body adjusted to the new kidney and the immunosuppressant drugs he'd need for life. But Michael got stronger. 3 months after surgery, he was back in graduate school. 6 months after, he ran a 5K race with Marcus, both wearing shirts that said 2 brothers, 3 kidneys. Now, 14 months later, they stood on the Family Feud stage. Steve Harvey stood between Marcus and Michael, his eyes moving from one twin to the other, and then he did something that nobody expected. He set down his note cards completely, walked over to the twins, and hugged them both. Hard. For a long moment, Steve just held both brothers, and when he pulled back, he was crying. "Gentlemen," Steve said, his voice thick with emotion, "I've been doing this show for a long time. I've met a lot of families and heard a lot of stories, but what you two have, what you did, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." Marcus wiped his eyes. "He's my brother, Mr. Harvey. He's my twin. We shared a womb for 9 months. We've shared every day of our lives. How could I not give him my kidney?" "Most people wouldn't," Steve said quietly. "Most people would be too scared, too worried about themselves." "I was scared," Marcus admitted. "I was terrified, but I was more terrified of a world without my brother in it." Steve turned to Michael. "And how are you doing now?" "I'm alive because of him," Michael said, looking at his twin. "I wake up every morning and my body works because Marcus's kidney is inside me. Every day I'm healthy is because my brother loved me enough to go through surgery and give me part of himself." The audience was crying now. The competing Chen family was crying. The producers in the control room were crying. Even the camera operators had tears running down their faces. Steve looked at the twins for a long moment. Then he made a decision. He turned to face the camera. "Ladies and gentlemen," Steve said, "I'm going to do something I've never done in all my years of hosting Family Feud. I'm giving both families the prize money. Both families win. Because what I just witnessed, what these brothers represent, is worth more than any game." The audience erupted in applause. The Chen family cheered and rushed over to hug the Martinez family. But Steve wasn't finished. "Marcus and Michael Martinez," Steve said, his voice breaking, "I want to do something for you. My foundation is going to cover all of Michael's medical expenses, all the medication he needs, all the follow-up appointments, everything. Because what you two have shown, the sacrifice and love between you, that's what this world needs more of." Both twins broke down completely. Their mother rushed onto the stage and wrapped her arms around both her sons, all three of them crying together. Their father and sister joined them, the whole Martinez family holding each other while the studio gave them a standing ovation that lasted for nearly 5 minutes. Steve Harvey stood to the side, wiping his eyes, watching this family embrace. Later, he would say that this moment reminded him why he did his work, why showing up and giving people a platform to share their stories mattered. The episode became the most watched Family Feud episode in history with over 400 million views. The brothers' story inspired thousands to register as organ donors. The National Organ Donor Registry reported a 300% increase in registrations in the weeks after the episode aired. 3 months later, Marcus and Michael appeared on Steve's talk show with Jennifer Rodriguez, a woman who'd seen their episode and donated a kidney to her cousin because of their story. "You two started a chain reaction," Steve told them. "Your love for each other is literally saving lives." Today, the Martinez brothers speak about organ donation across the country. Michael completed his master's degree and works as an advocate for organ donation awareness. Marcus works as an engineer and says he's never regretted his decision. "People ask me if I miss my kidney," Marcus says. "I tell them no because it's not gone. It's in my brother, where it belongs." Every year on June 15th, the surgery anniversary, Steve calls both brothers to remind them how much their story continues to inspire millions. The story of Marcus and Michael Martinez proved that love between family members can be so powerful that someone will literally give up a part of their own body to save someone they love. It proved that identical twins don't just share DNA and appearances. They share a bond so deep that sacrifice becomes natural, that giving becomes as easy as breathing when someone you love needs help. When Steve Harvey asked Marcus to name something he would give up for someone he loved, Marcus didn't have to think about it, because he'd already done it. He'd already proven that when it comes to loving your sibling, when it comes to that bond between brothers who've known each other since before birth, there's nothing you wouldn't do. No sacrifice too great, no surgery too scary. Marcus Martinez gave his twin brother a kidney, and in doing so, he gave the world a reminder that love is measured not in words, but in action. Not in what we say, but in what we're willing to do when the people we love need us most. If this incredible story of brotherly love and sacrifice moved your heart, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded of what true love looks like. Have you ever witnessed or experienced an extraordinary act of sacrifice within your family? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to register as an organ donor. You might save a life just like Marcus saved Michael's.